Hey there, it's Oscar here, and welcome back to another episode of the Big Wrangle Podcast. So, on today's episode, we talked about many different topics, such as whether we should defer university or not for coronavirus, cancel culture, transgender rights, gender-neutral bathrooms, whether our unconscious biases can have an influence on our decisions, and ways that we can help end racial inequality. So we talked about all those cool topics, and I'll hand you over to Kai.
Hello everyone, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Sam for editing all of this. He's done an incredible job on episode 1, 2, and I'm sure he's going to do a wonderful job on episode 3 as well. I'd also like to say thank you for everyone else who joined us on the Skype call, because you're all very woke and you created a really interesting conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, so without further ado, let's get right into the podcast. Okay, right. I've got the camera going now, and now I can give you my full attention. So, yes.
Excellent. Now we are important once more.
Yeah. Now we're podcasting. Now it's working very nice.
2 minutes early as well, no way.
All right, wow, that's really good.
Champ.
Who have we got? We've only got 5 people this time. That's quite peculiar.
How many was there last time? I think it was like a lot. So.
There was 9.
9, all right, yeah.
9?
That's cool, wow.
Yeah.
Very good.
9.
A few people have said that they're not available today and will be next time, so
All right, okay.
it's all good.
That's cool.
Our combined IQ is high enough to replace them.
It's at least in double digits.
Yes. Smarter than a cat.
That's important.
Well, actually, cats are very smart. But,
So that's generous. I don't know if I'm smarter than my cat.
yeah. Some can be smart, some can be a little bit dopey. Mine's a bit dopey as well. Yeah.
I'm going to fill up my water bottle and then I'm going to read out the first things I wrote down on the little notes thing.
Whoa.
Nice.
Wait, are we going to do an intro? Oh, he's gone.
Yeah. I've got 2 bottles of, a bottle and a glass of water to prepare myself for the podcast.
Prepared.
Just to sustain myself and keep myself going, like.
Hydration is important.
Very important. You got
It
a
is.
coffee and a scone. That's all you need.
Yeah. That way you can podcast away.
Podcast.
You know what, shall I set up OBS to record the podcast?
I've got it done.
Oh, have you?
So
Oh, right, that's
it's
brilliant.
all good, thank you. We're professional here.
Yes. Very much so.
Excellent.
There's no room for amateur here. No set that here.
Someone hasn't seen episode 1 and 2.
Well, I've seen 1. 1 was good. I'm looking forward to 2, but I haven't had a chance yet.
I
Two's
do
up
not
there.
know where the episodes are, so I haven't seen any of them.
I watch them on YouTube. I like it. It's funny.
On YouTube, whoa!
Yeah, I want them.
Very nice.
Yeah, I think you've got like... Yeah, I'm logged into this YouTube studio, the account. We've got like 9 subscribers, I think.
Something like that, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, we've got people commenting on it as well, but the people commenting on it, I think, are just bots trying to advertise all sorts of various things, but we've got some action going on, so that's something, even though it's a bot. Well, not the best, but well.
Well, I'm going to drop a comment right now.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I put a
We're going to be
comment on
rolling
there
it now.
on the first one, and I put very original first down.
I don't want to hear their own voice.
Yeah.
First of the first is what you were.
Yes. Well, I think you were the first subscriber, Guy. I think.
No, you're not supposed to tell them that.
I was the
second
first
one was my
comment.
mum.
I was the first comment. You were the.
Second one was Timmy's mum. We sipping.
Sip, 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 indeed.
Yes.
Why don't we go around the? No, yeah, I need to. Oh shit.
There you go, drop the comment on there.
Oh, lovely. I'm going to go onto the YouTube studio and heart your comment.
Whoa.
What the comment is when you found it. So.
Promote yourselves.
Right.
Self-promotion is the best promotion we're on about.
Very true. Very true.
Oh, yes.
The advertising model for this podcast is just spam following a lot of people.
Well,
completely
Oh,
free.
don't,
somewhere,
you're gonna make a YouTube community comment saying follow for follow next to 200 people. Oh god.
I didn't know that you could heart and like comments at the same time. That's really
Whoa, you really love it then.
That's pretty cool.
What was the comment, by the way?
The comment was sexy ep best podcast ever.
This is the kind of feedback that we need to share on our Instagram page.
Absolutely, yes. This is how we take over the world.
Joe Rogan, fucked.
Yeah.
Who else? Who's fucked? I don't know any other podcasters apart from that one. But
Oh.
he's fucked.
Call them all out for a fight.
Man, I've passed all the competition. Man, Joe Rogan is next.
We could do podcast diss tracks, but it's like the entire podcast is just an hour-long diss track.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we'll lead all up to like a boxing fight, and then we'll have like
It's just
podcast champions.
Yeah.
freeform jazz as a podcast.
All the subs. Oh,
Mm.
That would get the viewers hyped.
I would do indeed.
Question: are we doing intro?
Oh, shit,
Yes,
yeah.
that's the intro. Right, okay.
I did
Well, shall
one
we
last
do-
time.
Or shall we do the intro after we've done it so we know what to say?
Now, we've got two
Well,
intros. We've got the one afterwards, which introduces the topics that we talked about, and we've got the one right now, which introduces the people who are here.
Actually, yeah, that's true, yeah. Okay.
So, who's going?
Ethan's very good at doing the intro on the podcast one. So.
Putting the spotlight on me, are you? Oh, disgusting. Alright, I think other people might be joining us, maybe, but that'll be throughout the podcast. So, hello and welcome to the Big Wrangle. Today, we are joined by, is a total of 5 people, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Myself, if you want to go do the rounds, I'm Ethan, hello. Do you all want to introduce yourself so we actually know who's talking rather than just me saying the names this time?
That's a good
Yeah, okay, hi. I'm Oscar, and I'm also... I keep going back to the original first trailer that we did, and it's like...
If it works, it works. You know, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
I'm
True,
Oscar,
true, true.
and I'm here on the podcast as well. Hi.
Hi, I'm Kai. I'm hot.
True.
that's very true.
Yes, absolutely.
More introductions. Everyone must say who they are.
Hey,
If they
I'm
say-
Sam. Nice to meet you guys. That's all you need to know. First
Yeah,
name basis.
pretty
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi,
If,
I'm Gabby,
Ooh.
and I make everything worse. Mm,
false. But
Oh,
well,
Um, does that mean we have to kick you out of the podcast? Though? We're gonna lose all of our followers.
I mean, we would lose all our
hey,
followers
I
if that happened.
promoted you on my Instagram. Don't kick me off.
and I appreciate it beyond belief.
Yes. Others might join throughout the portion of the call, but as it stands, this is who's here. So shall we make a smooth as butter transition to the first topic, Kai?
Yeehaw! To start off, I'm going to ask everyone, apart from one person who's in year 1, everyone, and also maybe... Actually, no, never mind. Oscar,
Hello.
Smoother and gravel.
I know what your thoughts are on deferring a year. explain them.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. So, basically, of course, with the coronavirus, there's, with university, it's like, we've kind of changed everybody's plans, and a lot of people are thinking, maybe they should defer a year, or do like a gap year or something, or just go to university. And I personally, I'm just going to go to university in September, mainly because I'm kind of excited for it, and I've been, given an unconditional offer because of the coronavirus, which I'm really grateful for. But
Pretty cool.
because of that, I'm just going to sort of go whilst I have the chance. But ultimately, it's up to the individual. It's up to, if you want to defer a year, that's cool. But yeah, that's my plan. But yeah.
Question for those who don't know what it means, and also me, what does defer a year mean?
All right. Okay, so deferring a year is basically where, you're going to go to university in September of this year, but you decide that actually you want to go to university in September next year. That's basically what it is.
Skippy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Sam, I can't remember what you put in the poll, because we did do a little Instagram poll, and I don't know what the results were, which is a bit stupid.
It was done, that's all that matters.
It's there. No, I think personally I'm not going to defer. I don't know if it'd be an option anyway, but I feel like we've been off for so long. We finished early. I'm speaking for myself here. I'm bored. Oh, I know I would be bored. But by the time it comes around to, we need a bit of routine. It's easier to do work. It's easier to have a personal life. I get how people are concerned about safety and stuff, but my universities have emailed me with their plans. They make sense. There's going to be subject bubbles. There's going to be separated places. I mean, in Cambridge there's different colleges, so it's much easier to manage the spread of the thing. I feel safe going, and I feel like at some point we need to get back to normal as well. That's my opinion, really.
That makes sense.
Be spicy.
Anyone else have any thoughts? I have some thoughts, but
Share your thoughts, my friend.
I'm still sort of undecided. I'm kind of at the moment. If I had to decide now, and then that was forever what I was going to do, I'd probably not defer. Things that are bouncing around in my head, not so much safety, because I feel like things are going to be okay, but then I think it's more of what the situation is going to be like as far as what we're actually able to do when it comes to time. We just don't know yet. But things like how accommodation is going to work, are we ever going to be able to talk to the people in person that we're staying with, that kind of thing. And it sounds like we are. It sounds like they're going to do something funky with accommodation, but you're still going to have the 6 or 7 or 8 people that you have in a corridor kind of thing. And that's the main concern, that you would just miss out that social bit entirely. I guess it's also a bit of a pickle with the next year's going to be a bit fucked, because it's going to be tons of people.
Oh, true.
Yeah. Last year.
Yeah.
And with competitive courses, I don't know how deferrals work, but it's going to be ultra competitive next year.
Yeah.
Which is going to be a bit hard. And also with safety and stuff, there's going to be a ton fewer people actually going to uni, because of the foreign students obviously, but also just other people deferring. It's probably going to be a lot less packed than it normally is, and there are still obviously going to be steps as well, so I'm feeling pretty confident about it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, you go ahead, Sam. It's okay.
You were saying about kind of subjects and stuff and the accommodation. From what I've heard of, the plan I quite like a lot is you'll stay in accommodation with the people you do your subject with. So I do history. I'll probably be in accommodation with about 6 other people who are in my class in history. So it's kind of the same thing like a household now, which is another one with your course, which kind of makes me feel good, because then you can still socialise with people. Although some people might get kind of frustrated seeing the same people over and over, but I suppose it's better than nothing. I just kind of feel like I want to get on and drive my life forward now. I don't want coronavirus to dominate years.
Yeah.
It's
interesting that you bring up accommodation, because I think there's a lot of debate about what will happen. And my uni my uni is actually a really small university, so they can kind of hold classes socially distanced okay in the classroom, but I think, with accommodation, because it's such a small uni, it's, all private accommodation, so I think probably it will be a case of like, if there's a localized outbreak, then they're probably going to have to like sort of quarantine the accommodation or anything.
Yeah.
And that might get, a bit annoying, but to be honest, I would rather go to university and just do university. I mean, I would hate to do university from my home in Shrewsbury. Yeah.
Enter the Tommy.
Oh,
Tommy.
hello, Tommy.
Howdy.
You said howdy last time.
I always say howdy.
I was waiting for a break to say that he might join in a minute, but he beat me to it.
Always do.
True.
Tommy, this is very good timing. What are your thoughts on deferring?
Deferring university
Yeah.
this year in particular.
Yeah. What are you planning on doing?
Well,
Are you staying or you
I'm doing a gap year, and I was always doing a gap year.
Oh, okay. Well,
I never had the chance to defer, sadly.
if you weren't doing a gap year,
If I wasn't,
going to...
I'd still go out probably.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you were doing a gap year. That's cool. Fair enough, sir.
I think I don't want to defer a year, so I just would be like, nah, I don't want to do that. So I wouldn't, because I've been looking forward to doing to going to uni for a while, and I'm just like deferring it, which kind of, I don't know, it gets in the way of a lot of things, and I don't like it. If it's for safety's sake and it needs to be done, then I will. But I feel like by the time it started again, it should have died down enough for it to be like controllable or allowed. Like, even if you like do remote courses and stuff, like the course I want to go for, because it's an art course, I can't do it remotely because I need like all the facilities.
Yeah.
But if it's like, I don't know, if it's need be, I'll like not enjoy it. But if it has to be done, then it will be done. But personally, I'd prefer to go when you're supposed to.
Mm.
That's fair enough. I also think that, like, as far as stuff to do next year, I think next year it's probably it's quite reasonable to think that things will be mostly back to normal by like late next year at least. But then as far as like jobs and stuff, there's I don't know if there's gonna be like tons of jobs available because everyone's quit, or the businesses are fucked and they like can't hire any more people. I don't know.
I think the latter, I reckon, yeah.
Yeah, jobs are jobs are they're not going to do too hot for a while, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe if we do go to university now and not defer, a uni course is 3 years, so maybe in the 3 years' time, maybe things might have recovered a little bit, and maybe it might be a little bit easier to find a job. But still, I think now is is going to be very difficult, especially if you're just coming out of university. But yeah.
No, I agree with that.
Something that my mum was thinking about, I don't know why, it's not my main concern, but
I think I know what this too would be.
the thing about like Freshers Week and like partying at the start, it's not like a massive thing because I think staying in the corridors with a group of people is more important than that. But just as far as like the principle of social life being resumed, I think they're probably going to do something like have a second Freshers Week, like maybe like March next year when things are possible.
That'd be good.
Like that.
Yeah, I think they might do something like that. I think so.
It could all be online. It's kind of worrying, I suppose, because like the idea of if you do go there and then Freshers Week is like online, it's like a virtual Freshers Day. I kind of think that'd be depressing if anything. Could you imagine like a video of like people on a rowing machine, join the rowing club online? And it's not the same thing, I don't think, but
Yeah, that would be a bit weird. Yeah.
I wouldn't go to that.
Got like a virtual counter for each like stroke that you do, pushes it a bit further.
That's yucky. I don't mind that at all. On the subject of universities, this is a bit of a strange segue, but no, it's not. We're gonna jump right into a separate one.
Go right ahead.
One solution to Black Lives Matter.
Decent segue.
Yes.
Was doing things like offering black people university for free, and also like all the other shit like that. And I wondered what your thoughts were, as in like, is it gonna spread the divide even further because people are gonna be like, oh, why do black people get it and I don't, kind of thing? Or do you think it would benefit because it's gonna unfuck a little bit more than it has the social divide, that economic divide and educational divide that is between races? Thoughts?
Well, I think personally, university should be made free regardless of race, but that's like for everybody. But that's that's a whole another debate, really.
That's another bag of onions.
Yeah, that is another bag of onions.
Another sack of potatoes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but yeah, I think it's important to address inequality, because the amount of inequality that black people and that BAME people face is really concerning, and we must do something to address this. And I think maybe offering scholarships would be a great idea. Like Stormzy did his his scholarship, but I think I think that would be a good idea.
Is it because the thing about like it creating a divide rather than bringing people together, that was just the thing that I thought of. I hadn't heard anyone say that.
I don't think any university or any or the government should require that all universities have zero fees for one race and fees for another race. Because that's just not right. Even if it's both ways, regardless. But I think helping to divide, to helping to end inequality and racial injustice, is something that everybody must do. And I think we must work on that. But yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm not too sure on this, because not long ago, for a long time, I was pretty set on the idea that there should be these, encouraged discrimination where they, help support people because their race is less advantaged and such. But then, because this Black Lives Matter movement, I was I hate saying this phrase, speaking to some of my black friends, and they sort of expressed that some of them don't really like the idea of this. Like, one of my friends said they don't like Black History Month, because the idea that they get singled out. And I don't know if that's because, we're in Shropshire and there's not many people here. The whole idea of having different colour skin might be singled out already, so maybe they have a different experience from somewhere else. But like, they didn't like the idea of, just because their race is being picked out and then made them feel different because of it. So, like, for me now, I don't really know what the best solution is. Like, should we just provide scholarships to people who are less likely to have an education because of their economic background? I don't know. I think it's a sensitive issue that it's not as simple to just say, make it so those people have more likely a way of getting in. I think it's really have to care to think about it.
Yeah, I think
one of the main.
Oh, you go ahead. Sorry, it's okay.
It's because like Kai said about how some people would be like, oh, why do black people get this special treatment? Is that it's sort of trying to balance economic inequality and then also the social aspect to it. So it's sort of, if you were to out the black race, as you said, people probably wouldn't be very happy. But then you also want to address the economic inequality. So it's sort of like, if you try and focus on one side, you make the other side unhappy. So it's sort of trying to find that balance, I think, is the main thing behind this.
Yeah, there's like a balance in everything, really, of whatever policy you're thinking of. But yeah,
I suppose the pickle to that, and it's completely true what you said, is that like at the moment, white people are happy and black people are not, justifiably, obviously. So I guess it can't really be any worse than it is now. I don't know. It's a bit weird. It's a bit of a pickle.
I don't know what to think about it. Like, I feel like, for some reason, I feel like it's just like a token effort. Sort of like, yeah, give them this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think
Yeah.
I
I agree with making like universities free for everyone. Because if you're you literally you can't go wrong investing in education. You can't, because it just means you have an educated workforce, or just learning good. There's nothing bad about people learning. But yeah, no, like just saying like this. Sometimes like most things, there's no really like correct thing to do, because for a lot of people it will just say like, oh, you're just distracting from the main issue or something like that. Like it'll feel like you're just like, take this and stop complaining. It'll just feel like that to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I can understand why it might feel like that. So I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
That made me think of, when you were saying that, just how like just addressing that one teeny weeny bit of black universities, the effort should be focused on solving the reasons why you'd even want to propose an idea like giving black people university for free. They shouldn't like have to have that as an opportunity. It should be just like equal.
Yeah,
so like,
even if you did have this policy, it's not, you're not going to end racism just by having this policy. There's many there's issues of racism in society elsewhere that we must deal with. So I think we need a more sort of general. We just need to stop racism at the end of the day. And just treat everybody like human beings, because we all breathe the same air, we all live on the same planets. Let's start off with that and then come up with a consensus, But yeah.
I mean, it's racism. Obviously, you can try and minimize it as much as possible.
Yeah.
For example, because it's I've mainly heard that in the US context, but I read something that it could actually be possibly harmful to minorities, because then it creates a sort of environment where they themselves may feel like they don't deserve to be there. Let's say
that's true.
and that other people may believe that they will put their affirmative action, not their own merit. So it's sort of something that's like a nice idea, and I think it could work in certain contexts, but you have to be careful.
Just you saying that then reminded me of like the whole contextual offer thing that some unis do, and like just because you live in a certain area and like have been to a certain school, you get in easier. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
And it feels a bit like
It's
a
more
punch in the face that you're like less effort to do the same thing, kind of thing.
I know, obviously my parents work in the fire service. They do bring up that when they're hiring new people, like looking for new hires, there's like a massive diversity drive going on, and they did it especially for women. And the way they did it was they lowered the physical requirements for women for the like on-call officers and stuff like that, which meant that it was actually lower than like the physical, like the limit they needed to reach was lower than the equipment was. So like they need to be able to lift like so many tons or whatever, or like so many kilograms or something. But the ladders and the equipment they used was heavier than that. So they literally were endangering people for diversity's sake. And they often bring up the whole, you just get hired easier just because you're from this place, or because you're a woman, or because you're a man, or whatever. Because it's like forcing you to, like they're trying to force diversity, and it's just pointless. Because it should be based off of merit. So I can see where a lot of the whole, like the benefits from it come, but I can also see where people would get annoyed, where it's just, you've only hired me because I'm black or Asian or a woman or whatever, and it's like I should get it on my own merit.
Yeah, I do, I agree with you on that, because, like, if you look at it, like, from that particular situation, what's more important, putting a fire out or not being able to put a fire out and having, somebody die for the sake of, diversity, obviously, safety is the most important thing. I mean, I think what I was going to say, is like, if you, leave it so that people apply, to jobs based off of merit and merit only, then although, that's a fair system, you're still going to get, white, rich men in city bankers, banking jobs in the city or whatever, or politicians. So I think the real issue, if you want to have diversity in the workplace everywhere, is to just try and maybe sort of, deal with the stigmas and, like, nursing's for girls and firefighting, stereotypes that people have about careers, and because these stereotypes they can influence somebody at a very young age. Yeah, I think maybe
It does feel like a lot of the things are just like token the issue is solved, when really it's like a different root cause that causes like this this divide, like the lack of encouragement for people of color or women or men or whatever, whoever it affects in these positions. Like you don't, like it's the whole thing of like role models and like children's media and stuff. Like you see a lack of like all of the nurses are women and all the doctors are men, so it's like unconsciously encouraging men to be doctors and women to be nurses, or that sort of thing. So it's like it ties into a deeper issue that affects.
Yeah.
That needs to be solved differently than just, hey, you can do this for free, but it's like, yeah, but I don't really want to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There was a thing that we talked about a little while ago. I can't remember what it was. It was something about, I think the issue was gender. It was like the amount of women in STEM, and then a point was raised about how like the fact that classes are basically all boys, it might put people off from it. I can't remember what the conclusion from that was, but yeah, I definitely agree that like there's better ways of dealing with it.
Debate on debate club, you mean?
Yeah. Just a while ago.
I think we just ended talking about the studies done in very egalitarian countries and how even there we'll still see stark gender differences in jobs.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That's true.
There is the issue raised as well from some people, like that sometimes there's an argument we focus too much on differences of like there needs to be more women, and people are saying actually the solution could be to just not think about it at all. I don't know, what do you guys think of that? Because I think that's kind of hard to sort of say, let's just ignore the fact there are different genders, races, etc., and just say we're all humans. I mean, on the side of meritocracy and egalitarianism, I say it's worth it, but I don't know if we're capable of doing that yet. I don't know. What do you guys think?
It's a fact that, I mean, ideally you should only consider what's relevant to the job, just full stop, like anyways. But people and like, there are aspects as well, like you can say only look at their qualifications, but you still have to assess the person for who they are, in terms of like, interpersonal skills and yada yada yada, and human being aspects like emotion, and not just I got X amount of numbers in Y amount of tests. So it's like, I don't really know, like, I don't know, it's hard, like, it will affect people, the way people communicate, whether or not they're male or female anyways, because that just happens between people. That's not necessarily a bad thing, that it can be, but I don't know. I know it's, in terms of like, obviously this is a very specific example, but like in terms of therapy and stuff like that, like, oftentimes it's more comfortable for people to have, like a therapist of the same or similar background as them, or, gender or sex or whatever, because they can communicate with them easier because they feel like they know them better, like subconsciously perhaps. I think there's probably been studies on it, but I am too small brain and also trying to multitask, so I can't really go into detail, but it's a potential. It can affect it, but for many things it probably shouldn't, but it still does, so it still should be considered. But for the most part, it probably, like, shouldn't. you should put a CV in, and if you just put like with no name, so nothing suggested where you're from or who you are, just what your qualifications are, then they won't know until you do an interview.
Yes, it might depend on the type of job, probably. Like, if you're looking for jobs that maybe something like cultural differences might be sort of more relevant, you might want to have diversity as a certain focus. Obviously, not your total focus, but a certain focus. For example, like you said, therapy, or maybe something like journalism, maybe a certain aspect of journalism. You want to look at different sides to learn more about different cultures and perspectives. But in terms of like, I don't know, a banker or an accountant, I don't see why race or sex should be a particular merit.
Yeah. I do remember actually there was it's kind of relevant. They did like there was like a hiring for an orchestra or something that was done, and like men were being hired like 80% more than women or something like that. There was a big difference in who was being hired, and they were like, okay, so let's do it anonymously. So they did. So they had like they couldn't see the other person. There was no names, no nothing. And they ended up, there was still a disparity. So then they lay a carpet down, and then it was like 50-50. And the reason that they were doing that is because they could hear the women's high heels clicking on the floor. And that still led to them having a bias. This is like the only closest topic anecdote that I can remember. That's not fully relevant, but that was more to highlight that there is a disparity between people. Yeah.
I don't know if the because like with firemen and like the army and stuff, I don't know about orchestras. There are like tinsy-wincy things that might make someone be predisposed to be better at something, but then doesn't mean that anyone else can't be at that level. So I don't know.
Yeah, like if it's like with the predisposition thing, people brought up like the Olympics and stuff, and why shooting. Why is shooting male and female? Because it's you don't have the only physical capabilities. It's just like dexterity and can you hold something still? And obviously there's a lot more to it. I'm not a professional marksman. But, there's no sort of, I need to be big, strong to shoot a gun. There's nothing like that. So you can't say that there is. And even if it is like, oh, men are stronger than women because biology, and it's supposed to be based on merit, so it's only fair if you do that, then wouldn't it be done in like weight classes as well, like wrestling? Because there are like, loads of like, in separation things. Like, there are people in the other groups that would just smash. Like mixing a men and women, I know there's loads of them that like a female heavyweight lifter could lift more than the male heavyweight champion or whatever. So like basing it on merit would mean it would be based on merit and not need to be separated by sex or gender. So yeah, I forgot what my point was, but that's a thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because as far as like when we were talking about the Olympics and like testosterone and trans people and that kind of thing, we always said that like maybe it's better to base it not on a gender category, do it on like weight or testosterone or something, or a combination. But then I don't know, I'm sure that has an application to like jobs and stuff, but I don't know what it would be, because it's not like you can have like a NatWest where it's only women or something.
Yeah. I mean, the only like most of the jobs that have like a sexual requirement or gender requirement or whatever I could think of is like if you wanted that space to be all men or all women or something like that. Just because like I know there's people talking about like all female gyms because it keeps like women more comfortable in that sense, because mixed gyms can be uncomfortable experiences for women sometimes. So like you wouldn't hire a dude to go work there because that defeats the point of it being all female. And the same if it was all male, but usually they don't really put that across because I guess dudes are just fine doing. Then again, that's probably part of the problem. But you know what I mean? Like, mixing it, like if it's supposed to be a space that's all for this one type of person or these types of people, then it makes sense that a sexual, gender, or race requirement, I guess, would be there.
Yeah.
It is a mixed bag, and there's no one hard and fast rule, sadly, that I can think of.
I think that's the same in care work. I think you can have sometimes, for example, like women's support worker or something like that. I think
Yeah.
That's true.
also they specifically state male or female.
Yeah. It's like the thing where they ask you when
Yeah.
you're lectures, like if you just feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
preference.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially a big thing with, like, trauma and stuff.
The whole like being comfortable with being like alongside another gender or sex, that reminded me of something that I don't think we've actually talked about, but I thought it was quite an interesting one. I don't know, it was in the news, I don't know what happened. I think it was that Boris Johnson made it so that trans people aren't allowed in their current
Bathroom.
sexes. Yeah. And what do people think about that? Because I think most people would say like they should be allowed to, obviously to like, because it's their sex. They've changed. That's just what they are now. So it would make them feel uncomfortable that they should have to go to the other one. But then, where maybe a point of debate, because I think that would be quite unanimous, that it should be a thing. Maybe it's where do you draw the line as far as just like people choosing to identify. I'm doing a lot of
Oh, I
inverted
see.
commas for people who are on audio. Like choosing to identify as a man or a woman so they can be a pervert.
I mean, there's an issue of, like, comfort. I feel like forcing people to go into the bathroom they don't want to go into is just going to make more people uncomfortable than letting them go into the bathroom that they want to go into. I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, I feel like you shouldn't, like, I don't know. There's not really, if there's, like, many cases of it being, like, an actual, like, abused thing, like trans men, trans women going in there so they can perv on people, then it's like, if it's actually for safeguarding purposes, then it's fine, but I think it's, for the most part, not that, and it's literally just, like, they might do this, so we don't want them in there, so we'll just put this legislation in place.
True.
Doing the thing where it's like they've got like anti-trans views, but they're pretending that they're not. They're just.
Oh,
trying to
but
protect
for the
people
it's for
on
the children. Consider the children.
I mean, you can't assume that. I think.
No, I know.
It's a legitimate point because it would be very easy to do.
Yeah.
If you were allowed to do that.
My point is, I don't
someone
know
of that
enough.
nature who's mentally unstable and wants to do that sort of thing, they could easily do it if they were allowed. So that's a legitimate point.
Yeah, my point is, I don't know enough about it to see, like, if it was, like, a consistently, you know, if there was a lot of stuff saying, yeah, this happens a lot and we're genuinely concerned, then please do put that in place. Like, I would be willing, for the protection of people, to make a couple of people uncomfortable. But, like, if it's not a continuous thing, then it's very likely is just people disguising their own views as that. But I don't think it is that, but I haven't actually looked up enough of stuff to say, yes, it is this, or yes, it isn't this.
I imagine, like, a lot of supporters. I imagine.
Bless you.
There's probably going to be like a few people who have that is the situation for them. They're trying to mask it, but I imagine that there are a lot of people who do also believe that it is a genuine risk. What about the solution being, like we had in Meal, if you care to remember, gender-neutral toilets everywhere?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was
the issue.
going to talk about. For example, because sometimes there's also a safety. So I think gender-neutral bathrooms more available. I mean, maybe not everywhere, not every bathroom be gender-neutral. I mean, anecdotally, we had a gender-neutral bathroom in my secondary school, and it was disgusting.
They get groggy pretty fast.
Yeah.
On behalf of a boy, I take full responsibility for that.
Yeah, it was issues for both sexes, to be fair. I think the bathroom, something that, yeah, and like an aspect of dysphoria is how you pass social. So I think generally, if say a trans man passes well as a man, going into the male bathroom works because, the other men don't really see it as another man, and it would be uncomfortable if they were to go to a women's bathroom.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it also, I can't help with the social dysphoria.
I wonder if it's because it's at the moment it's like people. There are tons of different genders and stuff in a world where toys are gendered, bathrooms are gendered, literally basically just everything is gendered. And I feel like we're going to get to a point where nothing is gendered, and I think that's probably a good direction to.
It's interesting to think about, I suppose, but I feel like if we are moving towards that, we're definitely in a kind of transitioning process, and I still think a lot of people wouldn't be comfortable with mixed genders. So I was like, they were introduced in my secondary school, but halfway through we had a new building, and like the teachers were all sort of a positive new thing. Within 2 months there was a campaign by students who never campaigned about anything before to get them removed, and they became I'm not even lying. Girls said they felt intimidated because they could hear boys peeing next to them. They both felt intimidated being shared out, but I think for people who are okay with it, there should be an option. So I think, personally, I don't see a problem having 3 toilets where you have one for the traditional female, traditional male, and the third for those people who feel comfortable mixed or aren't bothered by it, men and women who don't be offended by different people in there.
Yeah,
I think that's a way of everyone being comfortable with it, I think.
Yeah, I think that would be a good sort of, transitional sort of way so that people would eventually feel comfortable with it. I think, because I think it's important that, everybody, feels comfortable everywhere, especially, using the bathroom.
Yeah. Ideally, there would be soundproof walls, because hearing anyone else pee next to you is just, in my opinion, I don't like hearing the business going on, but I do understand what the point is.
Good things about our gender-neutral bathrooms, I'll just say that. They actually had really tall walls and everything was really closed off. Everything else was, disgusting. Unless you went there early in the morning.
The great thing about the gender-neutral bathrooms at our school was that they specifically put the mirrors at the entrances to the bathroom because there was a problem with girls just staying in the bathroom and doing makeup for ages, and they were specifically doing that to drag it out so they didn't have to go back to lesson. So they put that in there to discourage students from doing it, and it worked because the girls started taking ages to do their makeup because it was in the entrances. They were blocking the toilets from everyone else, and everyone was like, "Can you move?" And they're like, "No, I'm doing my makeup." So they had to actually enforce them to move, because they were just wasting time because they didn't want to go back to lesson, although they were wasting time in break.
It was,
and that was like a second. It was, that was like a secondary benefit to it. But I mean, ours were. I think ours were kept cleaner. But
dryers? Sorry, never mind.
Ours, I think, had proper sort of fancy Dyson-y.
Oh yeah, they're the weird Dyson ones.
Yeah, we had.
Those are scary.
We had mirrors.
Scary but quick.
And we had mirrors by the sink. And we had a poster of butterflies for some reason. Types of butterflies.
Oh.
I mean,
did you go to Neil?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow.
What?
We're talking about the same bathroom we are.
Really?
What a
yeah.
connection.
I can't remember the poster. I thought
Whoa.
in my brain that poster. I remember there being some decoration, but in my brain it's human anatomy. So either I think humans are butterflies, or my memory is terrible. And I'm just going to go with
I do remember
the
butterfly poster.
What part of human anatomy are you imagining, Ethan?
those generic posters you see in movies, and it's the human body, and it's just a torso, and he's cut in half, and you see all the inside. It's like that, and all the bones and stuff. It's not it's not sexual anatomy, if that's what you're thinking from me.
I didn't know what you were saying.
No, I'm just just to clarify, in case that's what you're thinking. But yeah, no, like my brain memory is bad. In general, I think having 3 bathrooms would be good because I mean, who's gonna say no to more bathrooms? Less queues, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, in everybody's perfect world, it would be good to have your own little private bathroom everywhere you go. But of course, that's not possible.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, actually, I was at one university at a uni open day, and what they did was pretty brilliant. Like, they changed it to, it was a gender neutral bathroom, but it was super fancy where, like, every single little one was like a cubicle where you go in and then there's a toilet, and then there's a sink, and then there's a hand dryer. So it is literally like their own.
Well, that's crazy.
You see that?
Well, that
It's
cost
very
a lot of
hard.
money. So.
Yeah, it costs a lot of money, but yeah.
It's worth it.
I mean, hell yeah. For a fine, I was gonna say fine dining experience, and that is not what I meant to say.
Fine
For a fine bathing experience?
We're
I don't know. I'm just gonna stop talking. Next question. Move on. Someone else speak. I've embarrassed myself too much.
Oh dear. I don't. This might literally just be a thing that's just like I ask it if it's a thing and it's not. But a thing that I thought of was like, would it be detrimental to people who find it important to express their genders? Would it be detrimental to them if you create a society where gender doesn't matter? So like, trans people can't go to their own toilet, and it gets to the point where they can't, where there's like so few opportunities for them to express their gender, as in like they can't, like if handbags became complete gender neutral and everyone had them, would they feel bad because they can't like express that as being a male thing or a female thing? I don't know. I don't imagine that would be a pickle. So.
I think absolutely for people where gender is a massive important part of their identity, it would negatively impact them. But then again, one, I think that would be worth it because I think there's so many toxic aspects of like having such a heavily enforced like gender binary. I don't think that's Gucci, man. Like you know me, I wear literally whatever I want because I think it looks cool. I don't look good in all of it because I look like a goblin human.
Lies.
But I don't really care. So that's my personal view on it. But there are people who, to them, like presenting as one way or another is really important to them. But then there is the potential of, is that from like is that an aspect of society? Like being such a heavily enforced gender binary. Because there's loads of cases of people who thought they were trans because they didn't fit the gender binary enough. And they thought, like, oh, I don't feel comfortable doing all the manly things, so I must be a girl. Or I don't feel comfortable doing all the girly things, so I'm a man. I know it was a thing where that was quite common in autistic women, I think. Because they usually didn't fit, they didn't fit the female binary. So it was, like, they must be a dude, so then they would be a trans person, but then they actually weren't that, and that was harmful to their health because they were taking medicine they didn't need and doing surgery that it was harmful to them. So it could be that if it became gender neutral, there would be less people who would think of themselves that way because it's no longer as forced per se. But it's not necessarily a problem for people to want to present themselves one way or the other. It would just mean that it would kind of suck for them. Like, I think that would be fine. I think I would like that would be okay. They'd be unhappy, but if more people would be made happy by it, it would be like a necessary sacrifice. Plus, in the transitionary period, like there would be time enough for more people to crop up doing. You could still do the things that are considered traditional. So it wouldn't be like you could never be like the most girly girl possible. Or the most manly man possible. Like, those stereotypes will still exist, even if they are just for comic purposes. And you could still, like, present yourselves as that, I think, / hope. I don't know. It depends on what happens,
I suppose maybe if that sort of thing is really important to you, then you maybe would attach certain gender characteristics to certain things. So even if like a handbag to everyone else was gender neutral, if you felt it was specific to a gender, maybe that would be enough satisfaction or like enough expression that you'd feel comfortable about it and like still that you're able to express it. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think I like one can hope that if that's what happened, that's how it would turn out, and people would be able to wear. It's like people who are like history buffs, and they're like like vintage clothing, and they wear like stuff that was popular in the 50s now. That would just be like a fashion thing.
True.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, my stance on this is just be who you want to be. At the end of the day, you are you. Just be you. That's just my stance on it. Yeah.
I'd agree with that, yeah. It's about individual expression. I don't think some people can be proud of their gender, etc., but I don't think it's a necessity. Like, some people can just not care at all. It's about their individual person expressing themselves.
Yeah, like, if you're proud of that, then cool. If you're not proud of that, then also cool. It's the same. Just be you. Like.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I guess the another thing that I thought of, it came from English language. I'm so glad I took that A-level because it's kind of useful this one time.
English language bros, let's go.
The thing about like gender performativity, where Angie was like how gender matters gender is a bigger impact on the situation that you're in some circumstances and then less in others. For example, it doesn't really matter when you're a teacher, because if you're a man or a woman, you're a teacher. That's the main thing that's like dictating how the conversation is going to feel. But then I guess like if you went to a what are those things called, like drag queen things, where that's like it's all
like a
about
fashion contest sort of thing.
Yeah, and you've got like expectations of what kind of stuff you're gonna wear and stuff. And that specific situation, regardless of how gender-neutral society is, if you just go into that one little room where a drag queen competition is going, you'd have the opportunity to express your gender if you felt that you weren't being able to express it in society in general. So I think there will be avenues for people to get the expression that they want, even if they're not satisfied with just doing up their individual expression.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like with drag acts, they're men. That's the whole part of their character. They're quite proud of underneath they are men. It's just like an alter ego situation. So for them to assert that actually they're women or to attach it to that stereotype just seems kind of unfair. It's not really letting them express themselves individually, I suppose. Or to attach a gender to it seems unfair.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Just a genuine question, because we're talking about a gender-neutral society. So we're talking about as if the enactment, you'll know what I mean, like saying, pointing out the gender binary in the current space. I can't think of the word right now, but what is the issue of the gender binary being presented to society, like at the moment? Like, what are the issues with using the gender binary? Because to talk about a gender society, talk about the issues of the gender binary.
Good question. I guess it means one of the probably the easiest thing is, especially in like children and stuff, if you don't conform to this to this gender binary, you get bullied real easy. You get like young boys, they get bullied for being girly, and you run like a girl, you throw like a girl, yada yada yada, and all that stuff. That's probably mixed in with the general sort of misogynistic stuff. But if you say to a girl you look like a man, that's insulting. There's it increases bullying and stuff, I guess, to put it in the fastest way possible. So it can encourage a lot of the more toxic aspects of just the generalized stereotypes of the gender than it would allow for the diverseness or the diversity. So I feel like it just has the potential to encourage a lot of negativity rather quickly. But I don't know. Anyone else has better thoughts than I?
With these issues, does it have to automatically equate to a total gender-neutral society, or could there be just more of some societal changes, but not a complete destruction of the gender binary? Just what level could be?
I don't think we could ever completely destroy it solely because of how ingrained it is right now. So it would be some, in my opinion, like.
Yeah, I mean,
But I don't think
gender
it's
binary system has been with us since the dawn of humanity. It's going to be very difficult to get rid of, but at the same time, there is a massive issue, bullying in schools because you don't conform to one or the other identity. So we just need to kind of let people be themselves.
I don't think it's been. The only thing I disagree, I don't think it's been with us since the dawn of time. It's definitely a recent sort of.
Well, a long time,
Yeah, it's been for a long time, but it's definitely a recent sort of X should do this, Y should do this. It's not an eternal. Yeah, I think it was I don't know, it was Industrial Revolution. It was jobs were
Wait,
oh, you should.
It's about gender roles, or
I think so, yeah.
oh, much longer, much longer.
Is that okay? I'm done there.
The theory is at the moment, because we don't quite know where they come from, is they actually come through nature. But it's literally ancient civilizations. There's evidence of at least some gender roles. It's always going to be a thing in history. It's only recently changed in the last 100 years, to be honest, since the women's suffrage movement in Western Europe and America. There's actually been a questioning about the roles of gender, and even then it was only about women's involvement in politics. So I don't think it's definitely been a big thing since, not from the dawn of time, but definitely from human civilization has existed. Gender roles have existed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess.
That's what I think. Okay, thank you. That's why I think it's a difficult thing. Like you said, we can't destroy the idea, but I think we could destroy it if he works hard enough. Of course you can, but I don't think it's fair to do that because people should be free to express themselves whatever way. And if a small group of society still wants to cling on to the idea that being a man means this, then lead them to it in a way. I suppose just let them do that. Just as long as no one else has been forced onto they have to be a certain way. It's just up to you how you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to force people down a certain route, or we don't want to be saying or come across, have the impression of saying that, you cannot do stereotypical man things or stereotypical women things. Just be yourself, and those. If you're going to do it that way, which I think we probably should, it would, the whole binary gender thing probably won't go away. But at the same time, I think we should be accepting of everybody is an individual, and everybody has their own interests, and people might do stereotypically boy and girl things at the same time, or whatever.
Yeah.
Was another going back to the original question that Gabby asked, as far as why should we distance ourselves from it? I guess it links back to the whole, but then I don't know if this is a bad thing. The thing about girls feeling like they can't be X, as in when you ask a person in your reception to draw a fireman, they'll always draw a man, kind of thing. I don't know if that actually has. Is that a bad thing that they do that?
What, their perception of this role is always filled out as a guy, or this role is always filled out as a girl, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think the main reason that it's seen as bad, it's a mix of because feminine coded work is usually seen as less valuable because traditionally women were seen as less valuable when that became a thing, Industrial Revolution, that sort of thing. So the reason that it is bad that women are oh yeah, girls do this job is because that job is less paying, and that leads to a difference in wage overall, because it's perceived as less valuable. So it's sort of that's where the problem comes in. In my opinion, I mean, if there was no difference in pay, there's nothing wrong with saying women are more encouraged to do this, guys are more encouraged to do that, because you're not stopping, as long as you're not actively discouraging someone from doing that. You're not saying, oh no, you should do this, you're a woman, you should do this, you're a man, you should do this, and you're no, I want to do that. It's no, you want to do this. If it's just like general portrayal, if there's no negatives from that, then there's no negatives from that. But since there is, it's a problem right now, I think.
Yeah, I agree, for sure. You're on fire today. Is that everything I've written down about this fella? Yeah, it is. I'm surprised that we've been talking about this for so long, and it's been really interesting, and I'm glad that we have been, because I thought it was going to be like a few things at the start, and then the thing that I've written down next is going to be like the meat of this episode. So
that's the benefit of the free-form debate.
Yeah. It's been very cool, debate. Everyone. The thing that, well, I mean, hopefully this is a big one. Let me paint you a picture of how I came to find this issue. It's presented itself in so many ways. It started off like we were watching this series where there was a woman who, in the past, was in a gang who would like beat up black people and exclusively black people. So she was like clearly racist and stuff. And then it she was married to a black person in the present of the series, and then it like leaked out to everyone that she had this past and stuff. And the whole idea of like what was the wording? The whole idea of can a originally racist person like her learn from her ways and be like forgiven? That whole concept is like it's everywhere right now, I think. So that's the kind of like the core of it, but it's come across in like, I don't know how many people have seen things like this, but an example of it is what happened with Jenna Marbles. She's like she's a YouTuber who like in like 2010 and 11 had some like, in inverted commas, edgy content, and this also applies to Shane Dawson as well. And then since Black Lives Matter, it's literally been all of this kind of cancelling has been within the last few days. People have been going through old people's videos and content and stuff and looking for racism, and they're finding it.
Cancel culture is my favourite.
Yeah, but and they're like seeing how they were before, and then like raising up a stink and saying that they should delete them and stuff, regardless of whether they've changed and they're not racist at all now. So I don't know what people think. Is it should they feel a responsibility to private or delete their old content, or is it a thing that like, because that was so common back in 2010, regardless of whether it should be or shouldn't be common, it was common back then to do that sort of thing. So does that excuse it, or does it mean that you should delete it or anything like that?
There is a prime example. I can't remember which one. It was like Looney Tunes or Warner Brothers or something. They did like, you know, like loads of old cartoons are just really racist and just really not good, and you would never even think of proposing something like that. What they did was, rather than censoring it and deleting it and pretending like, oh, I've never been this way, they put a disclaimer on the front saying that like, this would never be accepted now, but in the time it was common, and you know, that's like, you know, we apologise for this, but for in the interest of the public and everyone, that we kept it this way, and you know, they put a disclaimer on it. So obviously that's like a company that's different to an individual person, like an individual content creator. So the way would be different to deal with that, but I don't think it should be taken down. I think, like, you know, people can change. I'm an unbeliever that anyone can change, really, and everyone can improve and change for the better. But it doesn't mean that, like, just because you have, like, if you have made mistakes in the past, they're in the past. As long as you've actively, like, worked to rectify those mistakes and learn from them and change and not make the same ones, you know, that's been proven, and you've done better, you know, to, you know, I guess, even out or whatever, then good. You don't need to like get rid of that. So if someone did something bad in 2011, but then after that they've realised that they were wrong and they've apologised and then they've worked on it rather than just saying sorry, Lamau, then it's, you know, that's good. They have made that mistake, but they don't need to delete it. If they want to, that's fine, but they shouldn't feel pressured to get rid of that solely because, like, you know, they've already acknowledged that what they've done is wrong, so it doesn't mean that, I don't know, it's cancel culture mixed into them. It means that it's not good. People just have nothing to do, so they spend like years scrolling through like old posts to find something slightly questionable, so they can like jump on the bandwagon. You know, it's not great.
Yeah, I'd agree with what you say. I mean, with cancel culture, I mean, I think this idea of formerly racist people, I think they can learn from their ways and become normal, nice people. But I think at the same time they need to be held accountable for what they did in the past. Not like like to court, whatever, but like by rectifying their mistakes, as you say. But I think the whole cancel culture movement. I think if you look at the people, or ordinary people, or other high very famous people that shaming these other people. If you look at some of the past things that they've said, you could probably find all sorts of controversial things that they might have said. So it might be kind of a little bit contradictory, But I think with cancel culture, as long as these people that are being cancelled, sort of learn from their mistakes, then that's the main thing, really. And they shouldn't just be constantly ridiculed and constantly having it brought up to them all the time, like even after the whole thing blows over and people still keep harassing them about it. I mean, cancel culture, it sort of it makes them kind of rectify their mistakes, but it can get to a point where it gets so toxic and it gets it's constantly belittles them, that they sort of feel like they kind of denied their voice, like. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going on about. But, that's just kind of what I think. Like,
yeah, I agree with that a lot. Really, I feel like a lot of this stuff going on, it kind of feels like Salem witch trials, where they're just like the McCarthy phase in America, where they're just picking out people and tie them down to a cause, and they can manipulate and criticise to take them out. And I feel like a lot of people are taking advantage of it. And they're saying, oh, that person needs to go, let's just, pin them down to this. And they say, like, it's not fair to keep bringing up things from the past. Especially that person that has come to terms with it and publicly declared that they apologise, they recognise it's wrong. Like, the YouTuber KSI, he used to be very disrespectful with women early on. That's basically how he became popular. He used to have a face called the Rape Face. How inappropriate would that be?
Boy.
Yeah. But he's since made a video where he's apologised and he emphasises respect for women, and those videos of him doing those things, I think most of them are still online. You can still watch them. He hasn't taken them down. He's explained how he was younger, didn't really understand. I feel like if people have concerns, everyone can change. Everyone can realise how something they did in the past was completely wrong. I don't think any human's incapable of doing that. Forgiveness is like such an important moral tool we can use.
Yeah, I mean, we are human beings, and human beings make mistakes. They do.
And
as long as you kind of rectify them.
Something that I don't know what I think about is like, because, so for example, with the whole using Logan Paul as an example with his Suicide Forest video and being disrespectful for like suicide and stuff. There was because at the onset it was like he did a really insincere apology, and obviously no one even remotely forgave him for that because he didn't deserve it, and it showed that he didn't learn from it. But then I think what's happening here, because with Jenna Marbles, in my opinion, she did a really sincere apology, but then, because obviously if it's insincere, then there's no justification to forgive them and move on because it shows that they haven't learned. But then
it's not an apology at that point.
Yeah, exactly. But then some people who do sincere ones, they still get fucked over like Jenna Marbles is, just because people want to cancel it, want to just like ruin people's careers and stuff. So I I don't know what the solution to that is. I don't think there is.
Yeah. I feel like my main point of this as well is a lot of people do use this tool. Like, you see this in politics so much. It's actually ridiculous. Both, any side, I don't care what, political party is, they always, pick out an individual, the leader, the right leader, and go to their past and pick out things they can use as weapons. Like, there was this leader of the Lib Dems long ago, I can't remember which one it was, but he was a Christian, and he was open about it. He thought homosexuality is a sin. He said he was opposed to it, but he would never oppose it in law because he's a liberal and part of his entity is everyone's free to do what they want. But in a lot of the press rooms things, they always criticised him for it and said, "Are you okay for being gay?" And he had to, keep saying over and over, even though he said, he's not in any intention to harm or anything. I think it's ridiculous how people take it to such extremes. I think a lot of people who say that how much they do and just feel self-righteous by the power that they think they have. Oh, I can shut people down by picking out this one comment from years ago. It's just ridiculous. It really is.
100%. Another thing that's sort of related to this about people changing and stuff is how a lot of I can't remember which one it is. It's either systematic or systemic, but one of those types of racism is the one that's 99% unconscious. And as far as racist people, it's still difficult, but it's not impossible to make people consciously less racist. But then there are things where it's a bit more difficult, and things like juries and just people in the street contributing to racism unconsciously. And as far as learning from their mistakes and stuff, there's only so much that you can do, and I wonder what's the best method to approaching solving unconscious racism, because there was an anecdote that I heard where there was a man who was married to a black woman. That doesn't really matter actually, but he heard about there being a murder somewhere, and then he saw later in the newspaper, after having heard about it for ages, that it was a white woman, and he said that he felt a little bit of relief that it wasn't a black woman, and then immediately was like, what the fuck, why am I feeling relieved about this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and it's that kind of thing that's even if you're racist, not racist on the outside, can that be solved? Is that something that?
I mean, I think the issue. Well, I think trying to solve this. I think what we should really do is is focus on early development, because the first 5 years of your life are going to be really, really fundamental to your views and how you behave consciously and subconsciously for the rest of your life. So I think, sort of addressing that in those years, teaching little kids, that at the end of the day, we're all human beings. If you're white, if you're black, if you're Asian, it doesn't matter. Your opinion matters equally. And, value the individual. I think addressing it at a young age, would, help, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I think with the what you're saying about the dude being relieved that it wasn't a black woman, and then going, hey, wait, what the fuck, someone died that's still there. I don't think that the initial thought, I think there's anything wrong with having the initial thought of relief, because as long as you then immediately go wait, that's not cool. It's it's the first thought is what you were conditioned to believe, and the second one is then what you actually believe.
Yeah,
I think it was it's with intrusive thoughts or something like that. That's how the differences were or something. I don't know. Brain is not good at explaining, but you get what I mean.
yeah, I understand.
There's nothing wrong with thinking something, as long as you don't you can think literally whatever you want. It doesn't matter if people agree or disagree. You can think whatever you want. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you don't act on it, then it's all good. Yeah,
they do say it's quite normal to have really weird thoughts regularly, don't they?
Yeah, because it's you can't help that if something's been portrayed in media constantly as being bad, your first thought and like initial reaction is bad thing, and you're like, wait, that's just a guy. What the fuck? Why am I thinking that? That's just there's nothing wrong with immediately. Like, as long as you are conscious about like this unconscious bias and you don't act on the unconscious bias, then it's fine. Like, you just need to learn and change from it.
True. It's like, it reminds me, I think, I can't remember what the name is. There's a study in America where they asked people on like train stations and the subway, whatever it's called, if they felt like pushing people if they were behind them. And I think there's a really high amount of them said that actually it crossed their mind. Like, it wasn't a chosen thought, but they did think, oh, I can push them. So I feel like a lot of us do have those kind of thoughts that just pop up as subconscious, and I think they probably come, like you say, conditioned from childhood from several different places. I don't know how you approach that. I think it matters that they do have that second voice after saying, well, why do I think that? Or I wouldn't push them, that's stupid, I don't really want to anyway. That is their real belief, I suppose.
Yeah, I think the devil and the angel sitting on your shoulder sort of applies here. Like,
I mean, similarly, I heard that like when you stand on the edge of a train station platform at the top of a high building, have you ever thought, what if I jumped?
Oh,
and
definitely.
It's sort of like, I've heard that sort of an actual, just general natural phenomenon is that's the easiest thing to do in that situation.
Intrusive
So we're
thoughts.
just lazy and think, why don't I just nope out? So luckily,
I think they're called intrusive
most
thoughts.
of us don't act on that. But yeah, that's just sort of a random phenomenon of our brains. And I actually have to go, so I just wanted to. I thought I might actually be part of the outro this time, but I guess not.
Sorry,
But I guess something to think about is how would you measure implicit bias? Because that's one of my main skepticisms of the idea is when people talk about it is how to find out how implicitly someone is biased and in what way.
Yeah, it's difficult to do because, or if you want to try and measure it, and if you want to talk to people that say, hey, are you having these subconscious thoughts? It's difficult because their actual conscious is responding here, and you can't get to their unconscious. So it's difficult. Also, one thing that
Bye. Sorry.
Bye bye. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming. Bye. Yeah, I think. Well, one thing I'm not sure if you guys have heard about this, but have you heard of the doll test? Where basically there's these 5-year-olds or 4-year-olds or whatever, and they put 2 dolls in front of them. One's white and another's black, and the researcher asks them, who do you think is the good one and who do you think is the bad one? And nearly always, with white kids anyway, they'll say the white one's the good one, the black one's the bad one, because it's these thoughts are sort of preconditioned subconscious thoughts, they're preconditioned at such a young age, and if you from a child's perspective, your subconscious thoughts aren't really questioned by your actual conscious. I don't know, just putting that out.
It is very true, and I think the whole measuring it thing is really interesting because something that an Instagram post that I saw that was it was saying there was this story about how this girl was being racially abused and stuff, and that was 60 years ago, and then it obviously just by maths it turns out that a lot of the people running the country have lived in a extremely racist society, so must have some level of racism. And a thought that I had was regardless of their devil advocate good angel thing, is that enough to say that they're we should be a bit cautious about letting them run when they might have unconscious things that they're not aware of, some things being less relieved that a black woman was killed. That's that's probably going to sound alarm bells, but there are going to be other things just being less just paying attention less or something like that, where it's harder to tell that you're doing it. Are those kind of things going to influence someone in power because they've lived in such a racist society, and does that mean that we should treat them differently or something?
I mean, I guess with that, I mean, I feel like, all of these, world leaders are, human beings, and like, with these subconscious thoughts, everybody experiences them pretty much, including world leaders. So I think what we should address is, like, how can we make society less racist? But I don't know. It's like, yeah.
It is difficult. There's never one fix all. Unconscious bias is strange and hard to deal with because it's unconscious and like it's difficult to measure because no one's going to be truly honest, and it's fucking hard to be truly honest. I mean, you can't just say, yeah, unconsciously I think this, because that's affected by your conscious self. So it's like there's no easy way out or way to do it, I guess.
Yeah, because your conscious self knows that racism equals bad, and if you're having subconscious racist thoughts, your conscious is going to be like, no, you mustn't portray yourself as being a racist. Let's not tell the researchers about this or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you do when you can't measure something? You want to reduce something you can't measure. Like, what do you do? Because you can't really feasibly do anything, because if you can't measure it, you can't do shit. Like, you can reduce the impact of it by, I guess, having councils of people, or I guess not acting on unconscious biases, but again, easier said than done. So it's hard. It's hard to achieve.
Yeah.
And eliminating it is something that you can't do like immediately. It's something that takes a hell of a lot of time. So it's sort of yeah.
Because that's the
I'm sorry, I can't solve racism.
Fuck's sake.
Oh, God.
I think that's probably the justification behind suggesting that people who have lived in racist societies are less fit to run things, and why people... Because, like, in 100 years, where hopefully racism is less of a thing, the people who are going to be living in that society, regardless of their, like, genetics or anything, just because they're in a less racist society, they're just intrinsically going to be less racist than people living 100 years ago, regardless of how nice they are or anything. And I wonder, does anyone think that there's like any legitimacy at all, like any small thing that would justify like restricting them in any way because of their background being more racist?
Over time, they're just going to be filtered out anyways, because they're not immortal. So, like, it's not like there's one person who, like, these people who've lived in a racist society are going to forever be like this. But, it depends, because if they are holding the views of the racist society still, and they act upon it, then it's sort of like, well, that's when they shouldn't be in the position. But it's like, you can argue that we already do that. Like, we can already vote people in and out, so there's no change that can really be made different to what we are. Because it's like, yeah, no, you can just say, nah, they're doing a bad job. We'll take them out.
That's very true.
I don't know. Obviously, nothing ever works for us in theory, because there's always more factors than there is in theory. So it's sort of difficult to say, oh, but we already do that, because different things happen and not everyone has an impact in literally every decision that's made. So there's still the argument of, if they get voted in, they have these views, and it doesn't come to fruition until they're voted in. You can't immediately just vote them out, because they have a period of time where they are in power.
Yeah.
Be that like a couple of days or a full term, however long the term is in whichever country or place that we are.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose one of the main problems as well, if you did like exclude people because they're from a more racist society, is you could have a problem where before elections, it's like people try to take advantage of it and try to prove each other's racist, and it gets out of hand because it's such an easy way to take out one of your opponents. Like, and I feel like, it's another witch trial. I mean, let people vote on it, because if you just said, oh, he's born as such and such, or she's born as such and such, and, there's evidence that they've done this before, then people might respond to that and vote for it at the end of the day. And as I say, over time it will just filter out, because statistically, younger people are usually a lot more anti-racist and more liberally minded, so I don't think it should be much of an issue, really.
Yeah, I kind of realised the way that you explained it in a way that's like, how it is.
Weaponizing cancel culture.
Yeah, it's
Weaponizing cancel culture.
It's cancel culture, but requires less evidence because it's just your birthday was, then you're racist.
You were born on 9/11, therefore.
Regardless, that's just age discrimination. Like, it's pretty wacky. But yeah.
Yeah, very good point, sir. That's very true. Yeah.
That was very successful, this podcast.
By the way, this reminds me of something I wanted to ask you guys about. What can I say about it?
Go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you heard of the movie called White Girls?
No.
No, I haven't, no.
There's a lot of controversy at the moment because basically there's a comedy film where two black cops in America go undercover by painting, like, they paint themselves white and then wear women's clothes and they act like stereotypical kind of, you know, white chalet girls in America. And a lot of people said that when it came out, a lot of white girls were really badly offended by it because of how they were being negatively racially stereotyped. And I think it's quite an old film, from the 90s, or early 2000s at least. And a lot of people now are saying that it's unfair how things like Little Britain and stuff are being taken down because of blackface and negative stereotypes, but that's not coming down as well. I was wondering what your guys' thoughts are on that.
It depends because it's sort of like, you know, blackface being traditional. Blackface has the history of, like, yeah, that has the connotations of, if you're wearing blackface, back when that was a popular thing, you were pretending to be a character that was intrinsically worse than other characters that were white, because they were black. So, you know, they'd always, you know, they pretend to be dumb, they pretend to be, like, you know, brutish or whatever, and that's, like, the history of those stereotypes. Whereas now, like, the current stereotypes of white people is, like, Valley Girl, and that's not necessarily, like, that doesn't really have a history of, like, a whole lot of bad stuff behind it. If anything, that stereotype is bad because the accent's a bit annoying to some people, and, like, they use the word like too much sometimes, and it's sort of, I don't know, I feel like because it lacks the history of, like, massive oppression and just general, like, they're not wearing that to make fun of white people for being lesser, they're wearing it just to make fun of white people, like, full stop. Which is fine. I think the jokes about white people never using any spice in their cooking, or just British people, I guess, is very funny. But I can understand why it would definitely feel like, oh, well, it's okay to do it for us, but not for them. But I think it defeats the point of, like, you know, it's not really okay to do either, but at the same time, the reason it's not okay to do it for one is different to not okay to do the other. Because making someone a bit uncomfortable now is completely different to people laughing at you because they think that you're basically an animal.
Yeah, because, like, I just wanted to add as well, like, a lot of the people are complaining that the way the white girls are portrayed is, like, they don't want to get their hands dirty, they're kind of a little bit afraid of things getting, you know, intense or anything like that, and they're a little bit dumb, you know, like, you know, like the idea of what's it called? Blonde hair, like, you know, they're a bit yeah.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
A lot of people were offended by the idea how they were kind of portrayed like that. I don't know. I think personally that it is kind of offensive still, but as you say, there's no history there of any racial oppression or anything. As there is with blackface, it's definitely a much longer, much more darker history. I do think that maybe they should listen to people though, put a disclaimer and saying how some people might be offended by it, because I can see how. I mean, I don't think it's really about race, more about gender, because they kind of focus on the idea of them being young women, making them kind of being a bit less, what's the word, intelligent and a bit more intimidated by things that scare them.
Yeah, it's certainly a mix, actually, come to think of it. And yeah, now you said that, it is, there's a lot of the stereotypes of, like, a white girl is different to stereotypes of white guys, and how they're different, like, they're charged differently, and especially if it's a girl, they tend to be more negative than if it's a guy, so that is interesting, actually, yeah. It probably just shouldn't, racial humor probably shouldn't just be acted upon, because in general it's just kind of lazy, in my opinion. If you can't write a joke that isn't, haha, they are from X, then you're probably not the best comedian. It's very much a cop-out comedy, so in general probably shouldn't be done if you want, like, the funniest things. So, I don't know, it's certainly not perfect, but I think it's not as bad, because it's without the history, but, and that's my opinion, it's very probably wrong and certainly up to debate. So I don't know. You make valid points indeed.
Y'all do be kind of woke, though.
It's like I'm awake.
Yes.
Have we any other things we want to talk about? Because I think it's probably been...
It's like
It's an hour and 40 minutes, so we've been going for a while. Shall we bring it to a close? Is that all? Or...
I think
I'll do that, yeah.
Ending.
yeah.
Yeah, sure. Aye, so, is it time for the gamer closing statement?
Yes.
Alright, so yeah, that was the Big Wrangle. Thanks for joining us. Do we want to do some rounds again, say who you were, or do you just want to close it off there and say thanks for watching, or listening, depending on what you're doing, I guess?
Thanks for smelling.
Thanks for observing us in any medium that you see fit. I guess, join us again next time for another good podcast. Thanks for coming. See you next time.
Also, everyone who joined, you're really, really good at talking and podcasting, genuinely, and it's been really interesting. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank everyone who joined. Thank you, Sam, for editing.
Sam, we love you.
Thank you guys. Thank Oscar and Kai as well. Thank you for, I guess, organising this and scheduling it.
Yeah, cheers guys, really good.
I love you.
Again, also thank you, Kai, for getting a lot of points as well. You're kind of you're certainly the master of no awkward pauses. And yeah.
You should see me in real life.
Sadly, I have. Yeah, no. I kid, I love you, Kai.
I've been cancelled by Ethan now.
Holy
Talk about
shit.
cancel culture.
Yeah, no. That's it. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Like, subscribe, comment, share. See you guys,
Oh,
bye.
fuck off.
Sam, end the recording here. This is it. Bye.
Yeah.
And go away.
Cut.